Okay, so you sent in sources about criminal groups, and one name just kept cropping up, sort of in the background, Nuestra Familia,
Mm.
which, it sounds pretty harmless, right? Our family in Spanish. Almost like benevolent.
Yeah, it does have that ring to it.
But the reality, as we're about to find out,
Mm.
is,
Mm.
well, it's not that at all.
Mm.
What's interesting, I think, is many people know La Ime, the Mexican Mafia.
Right, they're more well known.
But Nuestra Familia, they seem to operate a bit more
Mm.
behind the scenes. But they still hold a lot of power, especially up in Northern California.
Absolutely. And the source you provided, this excerpt, it really details their history, their activities. It gives us a really focused look.
Good. So we can get a solid, fact-based picture without drowning in info.
Exactly. The goal here, yours and ours, I suppose, is to get the origins, the reach, the real impact of Nuestra Familia.
Right.
So our mission today is really to pull out those key insights, give you a clear picture of who these guys are and why they actually matter in the, the bigger landscape of organized crime.
Okay, let's dive in then. This family, where do they actually come from? I mean, it wasn't just like a random group deciding to cause trouble, was it?
No, not at all. The source material says 1965, Correctional Training Facility, Soledad, California.
Soledad. Okay.
The prison setting is absolutely key. You have to understand that to get their origins.
A prison birth. Seems like a recurring theme with these kinds of organizations, doesn't it?
It really is, and the why is just as important. It was formed by Mexican-American inmates, specifically from Northern California.
Okay, Northern California. Why them?
They felt they needed protection. Protection from who? The Mexican Mafia, La Ime.
Ah, okay. So it was this north-south thing, like a turf war, but inside the prison system?
Precisely. The dividing line apparently was around Bakersfield.
Bakersfield, okay.
So inmates from north of there felt vulnerable to La Ime, which had already been around for a few years. That geographical split, that was the initial catalyst.
Right, protection. That makes sense as like a starting point.
Yeah.
But the name Nuestra Familia, it kind of suggests something more than just a defense club.
You're right. And the info points to a definite shift. Self-protection was the start, yeah. But Nuestra Familia, they quickly evolved.
How so?
They got involved in, well, the usual stuff. Drug dealing, extortion, robbery, inside prison and outside.
So that trajectory, seeking safety, then moving to wielding power through crime, it's a pattern, isn't it?
It is a common one. It makes you wonder, at what point does that original justification just get lost in the chase for profit and control?
Yeah, good question. From defense to becoming a major criminal player. So how do they actually run things? What's the structure like?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The source clarifies the connection to the Norteños.
Right, the Norteño.
Think of them as, like, the foot soldiers for Nuestra Familia.
Okay.
So if you meet someone claiming Norteño, it doesn't automatically mean they're in Nuestra Familia itself, but they operate under that umbrella, under their influence.
So like a pyramid structure, kind of. NF at the top, and they're potentially, pulling the strings for thousands of Norteños.
That's a pretty good way to put it. Law enforcement seems to believe NF influences a huge amount of the crime carried out by Norteño gang members in California.
So who actually gets to be in the family? What are the requirements for NF membership itself?
Primarily, the source says you need to be Mexican-American, but sometimes it extends to other Latinos, even some non-Latinos occasionally.
Interesting.
But the big thing is the blood oath. Once you're in, it's a lifelong commitment.
A blood oath.
Wow.
That sounds intense. Really highlights the loyalty and probably how hard it is to ever leave.
Exactly.
What about women? What's their role in this very male-sounding structure?
Yeah, this is a specific detail that might be surprising. The source says women can't be full members, period.
Okay.
But they are used for specific things, mainly communication and running drugs. The thinking is they might attract less heat from law enforcement.
So, practical, if a bit old-fashioned. Male-dominated core, but using women for support roles. Is it just a loose network, or is there, like, a formal organization?
No, it seems pretty formal. The excerpt mentions a written constitution.
A constitution, wow.
Yeah, and estimated numbers are around 250 actual full members, but then maybe another 1,000 associates.
So a small core wielding much larger influence. That kind of makes sense for secrecy and control, I guess.
Right. Tight control, wide network.
And do they have visual signs, like ways to identify each other?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Red bandanas are key. Red rags, they call them.
Okay, red rags.
Also the number 14, or X4T.
Why 14?
Because N for Nuestra is the 14th letter of the alphabet.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
And another symbol is a sombrero, but with a machete.
Sombrero and machete. Got it. These symbols, they're not just labels, are they? There's probably deeper meaning.
For sure. Like how you wear the bandana might signal rank or something.
Yeah.
And the sombrero and machete probably draws on cultural imagery, maybe for identity, maybe intimidation, you know?
Yeah, visual branding, almost. Okay, red rags, 14, sombrero with machete. We know who they are, how they're set up. What exactly do they do? What are their main rackets?
Main income sources, according to the source, it's drugs, distribution, cocaine, heroin, marijuana, methamphetamine.
Both inside prisons and out on the street.
Both, yeah. And they also do extortion, specifically hitting up drug distributors on the street for money.
Extortion. Classic organized crime move. And their reach, it's not just California, is it? The name doesn't exactly scream local.
No, you're right. The info suggests their territory goes beyond the U.S., Mexico, even Canada.
Mexico and Canada. Wow, that's significant. Suggests links to bigger international drug networks, right?
It definitely points that way. Transnational reach.
And besides the drugs and extortion, what other crimes are they involved in?
The source also mentions robbery and homicide.
Homicide. Right. The violent enforcement side of things. Protecting turf, dealing with rivals.
Exactly. Which brings us to the obvious question.
Friends and enemies. Who's who in this underworld? Yeah, the source lists allies and rivals. Gives you a sense of where they fit. Allies include the northern structure, makes sense, given the Norteño link. Yeah. Also Mexican cartels, which would tie into that drug trafficking reach we mentioned.
Right, the international piece.
And others mentioned are the Black Guerrilla family, Bloods, Crips, and the Latin Kings.
That's a pretty diverse group of allies. Seems strategic, partnering up where it helps.
Seems like it.
And the rivals. Who are they fighting?
The list is pretty long, too. Aryan Brotherhood, Fresno Bulldogs, Mexican Mafia, Sureños, Texas Syndicate.
And the big one.
And, of course, the Mexican Mafia, La AIM. The original reason they formed in the first place.
Still going at it after all these years. The source called it the longest-running gang war in California. That's quite a statement. Must have deep roots.
It does. The info mentions a specific incident back in the day at the Vocational Institute in Tracy. That apparently lit the fuse for this ongoing conflict. Wow. These rivalries must shape so much of what they do. So inside the family, who's actually calling the shots? How does the leadership work? Has it changed?
Well, first off, it's interesting that the California Department of Corrections didn't officially recognize them as a prison gang until 1979.
79, so 14 years after they formed?
Yeah. Suggests they were growing and organizing for quite a while before the state formally labeled them.
Okay. And the internal leadership? Has it been stable?
Yeah.
Or, power struggles?
It definitely struggles. The source mentions their constitution used to say the leaders were based in Pelican Bay State Prison.
Pelican Bay, notorious place.
Right. But then 5 of these leaders got relocated, and that apparently caused huge turmoil, a power vacuum.
Right, which in that world often leads to
conflict, yeah. A struggle for control among whoever was left vying for the top spots.
So who came out on top? Did someone consolidate power?
Eventually, yeah. 3 new generals apparently emerged at Pelican Bay, but then 2 of them got demoted, leaving one guy, David D.C. Cervantes, as the highest-ranking NF member in California. And the source notes, this was the first time in decades the Norteños had just one single leader in charge.
A single leader after all that upheaval. That could mean they're, stronger? More unified, maybe?
Potentially. But there's a wrinkle. The source also says there's still some loyalty to the former leaders, the ones who got shipped off to Colorado.
So Cervantes is the guy in California, but some people still look up to the old guard in Colorado. How does that work?
It's complex. The current leadership in Pelican Bay apparently tells members, respect the guys in Colorado, but they've basically been stripped of actual authority.
So tension between the old regime and the new one.
Yeah, definitely an undercurrent there. It's like politics, isn't it? Factions, shifting loyalties, even in a gang.
It really is. The source even mentioned Governor Schwarzenegger back then, being worried about keeping all the leaders together in one prison.
Right. He was concerned that concentrating them in Pelican Bay just helped them keep running things, keep the violence going in California.
Made it easier for them to communicate and give orders.
Exactly. He suggested splitting them up, sending them to different prisons to disrupt that command structure.
Makes sense from a disruption standpoint. Which brings us to law enforcement efforts. How have they tried to tackle Nuestra Familia? Has they been successful?
Well, the info says federal agencies had a tough time infiltrating them for a long time.
I bet. That blood oath probably makes it hard.
Probably. But they really ramped up investigations in the late 1990s, and that led to some big operations, like Operation Black Widow around 2000-2001.
Operation Black Widow. Sounds serious. What did that involve?
RKO indictments against 22 alleged members, including top leaders who were supposedly running the show from inside Pelican Bay.
ARCO, so targeting the whole enterprise, not just individual crime.
Exactly. 13 of them ended up pleading guilty, and the scale. Law enforcement estimated back then NF was responsible for maybe 600 murders over the previous 30 years.
600. That's just staggering. Yeah. Really drives home the violence involved. What happened to the leaders after Black Widow?
The top 5 guys at that time, they got transferred, sent to the federal supermax prison in Florence, Colorado.
ADX.
ADX Florence, the Alcatraz of the Rockies. Okay, so they weren't messing around. Isolate the leadership.
That was the idea. Cut off the head, disrupt control.
But did it actually dismantle the whole thing? Did it stop them?
Not completely, no. The source talks about other big busts later. Operation Knockout in 2010.
Okay, what was that one?
That targeted their leadership on the Central Coast. Led to, I think, 37 arrests, and they seized a lot of drugs, guns, too.
So still operational, still needing major takedowns years later. It's like this constant push and pull, cat and mouse game.
It seems that way. And then there were more indictments in 2013, Santa Clara County.
What was the focus there?
That hit 48 alleged associates, loads of felony charges, drugs, murder, the works. It shows that even with top leaders locked away, the organization still has boots on the ground, still functioning at the local level. Yeah, it paints a picture of a really resilient group, able to adapt, even under pressure. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Thinking about everything we've discussed, what are the key things people should take away about Nuestra Familia?
Okay. Key takeaways. First, I'd say the origins. Born in prison, self-defense against Leyeme. That's crucial context.
Right. The prison setting and the rivalry.
Second, how they evolved from that defense pact into a major criminal operation, drugs, extortion, violence with reach way beyond California into Mexico and Canada.
The evolution into a transnational group.
Yeah. And third, the internal stuff. The structure, Norteños, the blood oath, the power struggles, plus the ongoing efforts by law enforcement like Black Widow, Knockout, trying to disrupt them. It's this complex, ongoing dynamic.
It really is fascinating how an organization born inside prison walls managed to create such a wide-reaching criminal network, affecting things both inside and out.
Definitely. It really shows how these, seemingly localized prison issues can have these huge, far-reaching consequences.
And require these massive, sustained law enforcement efforts.
Absolutely. Understanding groups like Nuestra Familia, how they operate, it gives you a real window into organized crime dynamics and the challenges law enforcement constantly faces. It's a reminder, too, that these things are deeply interconnected.
So thinking about that resilience, the cyclical nature of prison gangs, those power struggles we talked about, what do you think are the biggest hurdles to actually truly dismantling an organization like this? Is it just about more law enforcement? Or are there, bigger societal things feeding into why they persist?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely something to chew on long after this deep dive. Thanks for breaking this down with us.